Have you ever been holding your camera by its top handle and thought, why isn't this handle also a 70 watt-hour battery? Well, you're not alone, because somebody made one. Let's get undone. Gerald Undone. He's crazy. What's happening, everybody? I'm Gerald Undone, and I just found this channel, so I'm not familiar with this whole intro idea thing, but it seems cool. So I've actually got two of these things, because within days of receiving this one from SOONWELL, IndiPro Tools sent me this one. And because these products are virtually identical, I decided to ask IndiPro Tools why they and SOONWELL have the same product. And I was informed that they're actually made by another company called Rolux and are just sold and rebranded by SOONWELL and IndiPro Tools. And so I appreciate that IndiPro Tools is open and honest about that. But this also lets us take a look at the two different color options and examine if there's any differences between the two. And the short answer is no. They're seemingly identical, save for the paint job. For outputs, they both have a 5-volt 2.1 amp USB Type-A port, two DC barrels, one at 8 volts 3 amps for powering cameras, and one at 12 volts 3 amps for powering monitors, or in the case of the Blackmagic Pocket 4K, connecting to the 2-pin power port on the side. Oh, and speaking of that, back when I did my 4K rig build-out thing, I mentioned that IndiPro Tools was making me a 12-volt DC 2-pin coiled cable for connecting to the Portapack, or even for something like this power handle, and they've actually designed a custom cable based on my request, and it's for sale now on their website. And they sent me the final copy, and it's exactly what I was asking for. So that's pretty great. So for a cable like this, you would connect this to the 12-volt port of the power handle or the Portapack or whatever else, and then connect this to the 2-pin on the Pocket 4K, and it should last you at least 3 hours. Then there's also two DTAP ports, which are both rated at 14.4 volts and 10 amps, and these can be used for both input and output, so these are also how you would recharge the power handle. But this is also something I dislike about these. It doesn't give you any indication that it's charging. There's battery level lights on the side, but they only turn on when you press check. Now, if you leave it charging for a while, you can see that it worked because the percentage went up from when you had it last, but it's a bit odd that they don't illuminate automatically while charging. Now there is an indicator light on this side for overload though, which is handy if you're experimenting with some untested or janky power combinations. Also, when you use that check battery button, I find that the lights aren't that accurate or really that useful to begin with, because it very quickly gets down to the final red light and then stays there for much longer than the previous marks, making it a little bit hard to predict your actual remaining runtime. Lastly, there's a power button, which I'm not totally sure was necessary because I don't usually need to switch on my batteries. I either plug something in or I don't. Now, I suppose there's situations where it could be useful, but I'm actually more concerned about accidentally pressing it and terminating my recording if I was powering my Ninja 5, for example. Now, a piece of tape could solve this, but again, it seems a tad unnecessary. Also, it would appear that the power button only affects the DC and USB ports and has no impact on the DTAP ports. You can still power your devices while off through the DTAP, but you have to turn it on to use the other port options. Now there's a few different mounting options. First, you've got this cold shoe bracket that screws into the front top of the handle. Now on its own, I found that it worked reasonably well in the hot shoe of a camera, but it didn't seem to fit into the cold shoes found on my camera cages. It seems to require above average clearance on the shoe, so your mileage may vary with that. But when it comes to mounting onto a cage, they do provide this little mounting plate that has a cold shoe slot on it that does fit nicely. And then you can tighten it down with this spring-loaded 1/4-20 wing nut, which will give you a little extra security, and then you'll have a large but very sturdy top handle with a battery in it. Alternatively, there's rosette brackets that can be used to mount these to the flanks of your cage so that you can use them as side handles. So the mounting options are great, and the included cables and accessories are a nice add-on. In the kit, you'll get the dummy battery of your choosing, as well as two DC barrel to DTAP cables and one DC barrel diameter adapter. And before you even ask, yes, I did try seeing if one handle could power the other one for some kind of unified two-handle setup. I see the gears turning in your crazy heads. Anyway, the short answer is yes, but not with the provided cables. You'd need a healthy DTAP to DTAP cable, and then you can charge them in tandem and also run down their battery evenly while shooting. You can also pass through power while charging. So let's say that you had your camera and monitor connected and your handle died. You can plug in a DTAP charger and not only charge the handle, but get right back to work powering the gear. But you do need a charger with enough output. A standard 1 amp charger is not enough, and the recording will just stop again a few minutes after plugging it in. But my 2.5 amp charger was enough to keep the recording going, but not enough to also charge the handle. So it took my 5 amp charger to both power the gear and charge the handle at the same time. And speaking of chargers, there's a deal going on with IndiPro Tools where you get a charger bundled with your handle order, because it's important to note that the handles themselves don't actually come with chargers. And the charger that IndiPro Tools gives out is only the 1 amp version, so it will charge slowly and you're not going to be able to do that active power and charging simultaneously that we just talked about, but it's still a nice little value add if you don't already own one. And that's a B&H exclusive, by the way. The SOONWELL version is for sale on Amazon if you prefer to shop on Amazon versus B&H, and it's the same price of $360, but there's no included charger. And finally, speaking of that price, is this handle worth the $360? Well, I think that would depend a lot on how you're going to use it. If you're really going to take advantage of the fact that it's a handle and perhaps mount it in a way that makes your life easier and provides power, then yeah, it's a nice novel purchase. But if you're just buying it as a battery, it's not a good buy. Earlier this year, I talked about the IndiPro Tools Portapack, which is a 98 watt-hour battery for only $100. That's 36% more juice than the handle, for less than a third of the price. Plus, when it comes to being a handle, I find this one to be a bit bulky and cumbersome while exhibiting those odd quirks I mentioned earlier, and I just don't get enough runtime to warrant the price premium or the bulkiness. When my Pocket 4K is fully rigged out with focus motor, monitor, and camera all running on the handle, I only get just over 2 hours, where I get closer to 3.5 hours on my other 98 watt-hour solutions, which again, cost less. I suppose its biggest draw would be that you don't need to rig out as big of a build as you would to support those large V-mount batteries, and it's a bit more conducive to run-and-gun style shooting. But there's a lot of other options that support that style of shooting as well, including drawing power from a gimbal, which if you don't own one is probably a better use of the $360. So it's an interesting idea, and I appreciate the novelty, but overall I'd only recommend it in specific circumstances, and I don't think it offers a compelling value for the average shooter. But that's going to be it for me. I hope you found this video entertaining, or at least helpful, and if you did, make sure you leave it the old thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't already. But if you did not find this video helpful or entertaining, then your current probably isn't proportional to your voltage. Alright, I'm done.